Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 15. There was hurry and hest in Heorot now, for hands to bedeck it, and dense was the throng of men and women, the wine-hall to cleanse, the guest-room to garnish. Gold gay shone the hangings that were wove on the wall, and wonders many to delight each mortal that looks upon them. Though braced within by iron bands, that building bright was broken sorely. Rent were its hinges, the roof alone held safe and sound, when, seared with crime, the fiendish foe his flight essayed of life despairing. No light thing that, the flight for safety, essay it who will. Forced of fate he shall find his way to the refuge ready for race of man, for soul possessors and sons of earth, and there his body on bed of death shall rest after revel. Arrived was the hour when to hall proceeded Healfdene's son. The king himself would sit to banquet. Ne'er heard I of host and haughtier throng more graciously gathered round giver of rings. Bowed then to bench those bearers of glory fain of the feasting. Featly received many a mead cup the mighty and spirit kinsmen who sat in the sumptuous hall, Hrothgar and Hrothulf. Heorot now was filled with friends, the folk of Scyldings, ne'er yet had tried the traitor's deed. To Beowulf gave the Baron of Healfdene a gold-wove banner, guerdon of triumph, broidered battle-flag, breastplate and helmet, and a splendid sword was seen of many borne to the brave one. Beowulf took cup in hall, for such costly gifts he suffered no shame in that soldier throng. For I heard of few heroes in heartier mood with for such gifts, so fashioned with gold on the ale-bench honouring others thus. O'er the roof of the helmet high, a ridge wound with wires kept ward o'er the head, lest the relict of files should fierce invade sharp in the strife, when that shielded hero should go to grapple against his foes. Then the earl's defence on the floor bade lead coursers 8, with carven headgear adown the hall. One horse was decked with a saddle all shining and set in jewels. 'Twas the battle-seat of the best of kings, when to play of swords the son of Healfdene was fain to fare. Near failed his valour in the crush of combat when corpses fell. To Beowulf over them both then gave the refuge of Ingwines right and power o'er war steeds and weapons, wished him joy of them. Manfully thus the mighty prince, hoard guard for heroes that hard fight repaid with steeds and treasures, contemned by none who was willing to say the sooth aright. Read by Rick Kishner for Lit2Go, on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 16. And the lord of earls to each that came with Beowulf over the briny ways, an heirloom there at the ale-bench gave precious gift, and the price bade pay in gold for him whom Grendel erst murdered, and fain of them more had killed, had not wisest God their wired averted, and the man's brave mood. The Maker then ruled humankind as here and now. Therefore is insight always best, and forethought of mind. How much awaits him of lief and of loath, who long time here, through days of warfare, this world endures. Then song and music mingled sounds in the presence of Healfdene's head of armies, and harping was heard with the hero lay, as Hrothgar's singer the hall joy woke along the mead seats, making his song of that sudden raid on the sons of Finn. Healfdene's hero, Naef the Scylding, was fated to fall in the Frysnian slaughter. Hildebeth needed not hold in value her enemy's honour. Innocent both were the loved ones she lost at the linden play, bairn and brother, they bowed to fate stricken by spears. 'Twas a sorrowful woman. None doubted why the daughter of Hawk bewailed her doom when dawning came, and under the sky she saw them lying, kinsmen murdered, where most she had kenned of the sweets of the world. By war were swept too Finn's own liegemen, and few were left in the parleying place. He could ply no longer weapon, nor war could he wage on Hengist, and rescue his remnant by right of arms from the prince's thane. A pact he offered. Another dwelling the Danes should have, hall and high seat, and half the power should fall to them in Frisian land. And at the fee-gifts Folkwald's son day by day the Danes should honour, the folk of Hengist favour with rings, even as truly with treasure and jewels, with fretted gold, as his Frisian kin he meant to honour in ale-hall there. Pact of peace they plighted further on both sides firmly. Finn to Hengist with oath upon honour, openly promised that woeful remnant with wise men's aid nobly to govern, so none of the guests by word or work should warp the treaty, or with malice of mind, bemoan themselves, as forced to follow their fee-giver slayer, lordless men as their lot ordained. Should Frisian moreover with foeman's taunt that murderous hatred to mind recall, then edge of the sword must seal his doom. Oaths were given and ancient gold heaped from hoard. The hardy scalding battle-thane best on his baleful lay. All on the pyre were plain to see the gory sark, the gilded swine crest, boar of hard iron, and aethelings many slain by the sword. At the slaughter they fell. It was Hildeburh's hest, at Naif's own pyre, the bairn of her body on brands to lay, his bones to burn, on the bale fire placed at his uncle's side. In sorrowful dirges bewept them the women. Great wailing ascended. Then wound up to welkin the wildest of death fires, roared o'er the hillock. Heads all were melted, gashes burst, and blood gushed out from bites of the body. Bale fire devoured greediest spirit, those spared not by war out of either folk. Their flower was gone. Read by Rick Kistner, for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 17. Then hastened those heroes their home to see, friendless to find the Frisian land, houses, and high burg. Hengist, still, through the death-dyed winter, dwelt with Finn, holding pact, yet of home he minded, though powerless his ring-decked prow to drive over the waters. Now waves rolled fierce, lashed by the winds, or winter locked them in icy fetters. Then fared another year to men's dwellings, as yet they do, the sun-bright skies, that their season over duly await. Far off winter was driven, fair lay earth's breast, and fain was the rover the guest to depart, though more gladly he pondered on wreaking his vengeance than roaming the deep, and how to hasten the hot encounter where sons of the Frisians were sure to be. So he escaped not the common doom when Hun with Leifing, the light of battle best of blades, his bosom pierced. Its edge was famed with the Frisian earls. On fierce heart Finn there fell likewise on himself at home the horrid sword death. For Gunthilaf and Oslaf of grim attack had sorrowing told, from seaways landed mourning their woes. Finn's wavering spirit bode not in breast. The burg was reddened with blood of foemen, and Finn was slain, king amid clansmen. The queen was taken to their ship, the scouting warriors bore all the chattels the chieftain owned, whatever they found in Finn's domain of gems and jewels. The gentle wife o'er paths of the deep to the Danes they bore, led her to her land. The lay was finished, the gleeman's song. Then glad rose the revel, bench joy brightened. Bearers draw from their wonder-vats wine. Comes Wealhtheow forth under gold crown, goes where the good pair sit, uncle and nephew, true each to the other one, kindred in amity. Unferth, the spokesman at the scouting's lord's feet sat. Men had faith in his spirit, his keenness of courage, though kinsmen had found him unsure at the sword-play. The scouting queen spoke. Quaff of this cup, my king and lord, breaker of rings, and blithe be thou, gold friend of men. To the Geats here speak such words of mildness as man should use. Be glad with thy Geats, of those gifts be mindful, or near or far, which now thou hast. Men say to me, as son thou wishest yon hero to hold. Thy heret purged, jewel-hall brightest, enjoy while thou canst, with many a largesse, and leave to thy kinfolk and realm, when forth thou goest to greet thy doom. For gracious I deem my Hrothulf willing to hold and rule nobly our youths, if thou yielded up first, prince of Scyldings, thy part in the world. I ween with good he will well requite offspring of ours, when all he minds that for him we did in his helpless days of gift and grace to gain him honour. Then she turned to the seat where her sons were placed. Hrethric and Hrothmund with heroes' bairns, young men together. The Geat too sat there, Beowulf brave, the brothers between. Read by Rick Kistner, for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 18. A cup she gave him with kindly greeting and winsome words. Of wounden gold she offered, to honour him, arm jewels twain, corselet and rings, and of collars the noblest that ever I knew the earth around. Ne'er heard I so mighty neath heaven's dome, a hoard gem of heroes since Hama born to his bright built burg, the Brising's necklace, jewel, and gem casket. Jealousy fled he, Eormenric's hate chose help eternal. Hygelac, Geat, grandson of Swerting, on the last of his raids this ring bore with him, under his banner the booty defending, the war spoil warding. But Wyard o'erwhelmed him, what time in his daring dangers he sought, feud with Frisians. Fairest of gems he bore with him, o'er the beaker of waves, sovereign strong, under shield he died. Fell the corpse of the king into keeping of Franks, gear of the breast, and that gorgeous ring. Weaker warriors won the spoil after gripe of battle from Geatland's lord, and held the death field. Din rose in hall. Wealhtheow spake amid warriors, and said, This jewel and joy in thy jocund youth, Beowulf loved these battle weeds wear, a royal treasure, and richly thrive. Preserve thy strength, and these striplings here counsel in kindness. Requital be mine. Hast done such deeds that for days to come thou art famed among folk both far and near, so wide as washeth the wave of ocean his windy walls. Through the ways of life prosper, O Prince. I pray for thee rich possessions. To son of mine be helpful indeed, and uphold his joys. Here every earl to the other is true, mild of mood to the master loyal. Thanes are friendly, the throng obedient, liegemen are revelling, list and obey. Went then to her place, that was proudest of feasts. Flowed wine for the warriors, Wyard they knew not, destiny dire, and the doom to be seen by many an earl when eve should come, and Hrothgar homeward hasten away, royal to rest. The room was guarded by an army of earls, as erst was done. They bared the bench boards, abroad they spread beds and bolsters. One beer carouser in danger of doom lay down in the hall. At their heads they set their shields of war, bucklers bright. On the bench were there over each atheling easy to see the high battle helmet, the haughty spear, the corslet of rings. 'Twas their custom so ever to be for battle prepared, at home or harrying, which it were, even as oft as evil threatened their sovereign king, they were clansmen good. Read by Rick Kishner for Lit2Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 19. Then sank they to sleep. With sorrow, one bought his rest of the evening, as oft-time had happened when Grendel guarded that golden hall, evil wrought till his ends drew nigh, slaughter for sins. 'Twas seen and told how an avenger survived the fiend, as was learned afar. The livelong time after that grim fight, Grendel's mother, monster of women, mourned her woe. She was doomed to dwell in the dreary waters, cold sea-courses, since Cain cut down with edge of the sword his only brother, his father's offspring. Outlawed he fled, marked with murder from men's delights, warded the wilds. There woke from him such faint-sent ghost as Grendel, who, war-wolf horrid, at Heorot found a warrior watching and waiting the fray, with whom the grisly one grappled amain. But the man remembered his mighty power, the glorious gift that God had sent him, in his Maker's mercy put his trust for comfort and help. So he conquered the foe, felled the fiend who fled abject, reft of joy to the realms of death, mankind's foe. And his mother now, gloomy and grim, would go that quest of sorrow, the death of her son to avenge. To Heorot came she, where helmeted Danes slept in the hall. Too soon came back old ills of the earls, when in she burst, the mother of Grendel, less grim though that terror, e'en as terror of women in war is less, might of maid than of men in arms, when, hammer-forged, the falchion hard, sword gore-stained, through swine of the helm, crested with keen blades carved amain. Then was in hall the hard edge drawn, the swords on the settles, and shields a many firm held in hand, nor helmet minded, nor harness of mail, whom that horror seized. Haste was hers. She would hie afar and save her life when the liegemen saw her. Yet a single atheling up she seized fast and firm as she fled to the moor. He was for Hrothgar of heroes the dearest of trusty vassals betwixt the seas, whom she killed on his couch, a clansman famous in battle brave. Nor was Beowulf there. Another house had been held apart after giving of gold for the great renowned. Uproar filled Heorot. The hand all had viewed, blood-flecked she bore with her. Bale was returned, dole in the dwellings. 'Twas dire exchange where Dane and Geat were doomed to give the lives of loved ones. Long-tried king, the hoary hero, at heart was sad, when he knew his noble no more lived, and dead indeed was his dearest thane. To his bower was Beowulf brought in haste, dauntless victor. As daylight broke, along with his earls, the atheling lord with his clansmen came where the king abode, waiting to see if the wielder of all would turn this tale of trouble and woe. Strode o'er floor, the famed in strife with his hand companions, the hall resounded, wishing to greet the wise old king, Ingwine's lord. He asked if the night had passed in peace to the prince's mind. Read by Rick Kishner, for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 20. Hrothgar spake, helmet of Scyldings, ask not of pleasure. Pain is renewed to Danish folk. Dead is Aeskir of Jormunlaf, the elder brother, my sage adviser and stay in council, shoulder comrade in stress of fight when warriors clashed and we warded our heads, hewed the helm bores. Hero, famed should be every earl as Aeskir was. But here in Heorot a hand hath slain him of wandering death sprite. I wot not whither, proud of the prey her path she took, fain of her fill. The feud she avenged that yesternight, unyieldingly Grendel in grimmest grasp thou kill'st, seeing how long these liegemen mine he ruined and ravaged. Reft of life, in arms he fell. Now another comes, keen and cruel, her kin to avenge, faring far in feud of blood, so that many a thane shall think, whoe'er sorrows in soul for that sharer of rings, this is hardest of heart-bales. The hand lies low that once was willing each wish to please. Land-dwellers here and liegemen mine, who house by those parts, I have heard relate that such a pair they have sometimes seen. March-stalkers, mighty the moorland haunting, wandering spirits. One of them seemed, so far as my folk could fairly judge, of womankind, and one accursed in man's guise trod the misery track of exile, though huger than human bulk. Grendel in days long gone they named him, folk of the land. His father they knew not, nor any brood that was born to him of treacherous spirits. Untrod is their home, by wolf cliffs haunt, they and windy headlands, fenways fearful, where flows the stream from mountains gliding to gloom of the rocks' underground flood. Not far is it hence in measure of miles that the mere expands, and o'er it the frost-bound forest hanging, sturdily rooted, shadows the wave. By night is a wonder weird to see fire on the waters, so wise lived none of the sons of men to search those depths. Nay, though the heath rover harried by dogs the horn-proud hart, this holt should seek long distance driven, his dear life first on the brink he yields ere he brave the plunge to hide his head. 'Tis no happy place. Thence the welter of waters washes up wan to welkin when winds bestir evil storms and air grows dusk and the heavens weep. Now is help once more with thee alone. The land thou know'st not, place of fear, where thou findest out that sin-flecked being? Seek if thou dare. I will reward thee for waging this fight with ancient treasures, as erst I did with winding gold, if thou winnest back. Read by Rick Kishner, for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 21. Beowulf spake, Bairn of Ecgtheow, sorrow not, sage, it beseems us better friends to avenge than fruitlessly mourn them. Each of us all must his end abide in the ways of the world, so win who may glory ere death. When his days are told, that is the warrior's worthiest doom. Rise, O realm warder, ride we anon and mark the trail of the mother of Grendel. No harbour shall hide her. Heed my promise. Enfolding of field or forested mountain, or floor of the flood, let her flee where she will. But thou this day endure in patience, as I ween thou wilt, thy woes each one. Leaped up the greybeard, God he thanked, mighty lord, for the man's brave words. For Hrothgar soon a horse was saddled, wave-maned steed, the sovereign wise stately rode on. His shield-armed men followed in force. The footprints led along the woodland, widely seen, a path o'er the plain where she passed and trod the murky moor. Of men-at-arms she bore the bravest and best ones dead, him who with Hrothgar the homestead ruled. On then went the atheling born, o'er stone cliffs, steep and straight defiles, narrow passes and unknown ways, headlands sheer, and the haunts of the Nacors. Foremost he fared, a few at his side of the wiser men, the ways to scan, till he found in a flash the forested hill, hanging over the hoary rock, a woeful wood. The waves below were dyed in blood. The Danish men had sorrow of soul, and for Scyldings all, for many a hero 'twas hard to bear, ill for earls when Ashker's head they found by the floor on the foreland there. waves were welling. The warriors saw, hot with blood, but the horns sang off battle-song bold. The band sat down and watched on the water worm-like things, sea-dragons strange that sounded the deep, and nicors that lay on the ledge of the ness, such as often essay at hour of morn on the road of sails their ruthless quest, and sea-snakes and monsters, these started away, swollen and savage, that song to hear, that war-horn's blast. The warden of Geats, with bolt from bow, then balked of life of wave-work, one monster amid its heart, went the keen war-shaft in water it seemed less doughty in swimming, whom death had seized. Swift on the billows, with boar spears well hooked and barbed, it was hard beset, done to death and dragged on the headland wave roamer wondrous. Warriors viewed the grisly guest, then girt him Beowulf in martial mail, nor mourned for his life. His breastplate broad and bright of hues, woven by hand, should the waters try, well could it ward the warrior's body, that battle should break on his breast in vain, nor harm his heart by the hand of a foe. And the helmet, white, that his head protected, was destined to dare the deeps of the flood. Through wave whirlwind 'twas wound with chains, decked with gold, as in days of yore. The weaponsmith worked it wondrously, with swine form set it, that swords nowise brandished in battle could bite that helm. Nor was that the meanest of mighty helps which Hrothgar's orator offered at need. Hrunting they named the hilted sword of old-time heirlooms easily first. Iron was its edge, all etched with poison, with battle-blood hardened, nor blenched it at fight in hero's hand, who held it ever on paths of peril prepared to go to folkstead of foes. Not first time this it was designed to do a daring task, for he bore not in mind the bairn of Eglaf, sturdy and strong, that speech he had made, drunk with wine. Now this weapon he lent to a stouter swordsman. Himself, though, durst not under welter of waters wager his life as loyal liegeman. So lost he his glory, honour of earls. With the other not so, who girded him now for the grim encounter. Read by Rick Kistner. Full to go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf. Translated by Francis B. Grumer. 22. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. Have mind, thou honoured offspring of Helfdene, gold friend of men. Now I go on this quest, sovereign wise, what once was said. If in thy cause it came that I should lose my life, thou wouldst loyal bide to me, though fallen in father's place. Be guardian thou to this group of my thanes, my warrior friends, if war should seize me. And the goodly gifts thou gavest me, Hrothgar beloved, to Hygeix send. Geatland's king may ken by the gold, Rethel's son see when he stares at the treasure, that I got me a friend for goodness famed, and joyed while I could in my jewel bestower. And let Unferth wield this wondrous sword, Earl, far honoured, this heirloom precious heart of edge. With Hrunting I seek doom of glory, or death shall take me. After these words, the Wieder great lord boldly hastened, biding never answer at all. The ocean floods closed o'er the hero, long while of the day fled ere he felt the floor of the sea. Soon found the fiend, who the flood domain sword-hungry held these 100 winters, greedy and grim, that some guest from above, some man, was raiding her monster realm. She grasped out for him with grisly claws, and the warrior seized, yet scathed she not his body hale. The breastplate hindered as she strove to shatter the sark of war, the linked harness with loathsome hand. Then bore this brine wolf, when bottom she touched, the Lord of Rings to the lair she haunted, whiles vainly he strove, though his valour held weapon to wield against wondrous monsters that sore beset him. Sea beasts many tried with fierce tusks to tear his mail, and swarmed on the stranger. But soon he marked he was now in some hall, he knew not which, where water never could work him harm, nor through the roof could reach him ever fangs of the flood. Firelight he saw, beams of a blaze that brightly shone. Then the warrior was ware of that wolf of the deep, mere wife monstrous. For mighty stroke he swung his blade, and the blow withheld not. Then sang on her head that seemly blade its war-song wild. But the warrior found the light of battle was loath to bite, to harm the heart, its hard edge failed the noble at need, yet had known of old strife hand to hand, and had helmets cloven, doomed men's fighting gear. First time this for the gleaming blade that its glory fell. Firm still stood, nor failed in valour, heedful of high deeds, Hygelac's kinsman. Flung away fretted sword, featly jewelled the angry earl. On earth it lay, steel-edged and stiff, his strength he trusted, hand-grip of might. So man shall do whenever in war he weens to earn him lasting fame, nor fears for his life. Seized then by shoulder, shrank not from combat the Geatish war-prince Grendel's mother. Flung then the fierce one, filled with wrath his deadly foe, that she fell to the ground. Swift on her part she paid him back with grisly grasp, and grappled with him. Spent with struggle, stumbled the warrior, fiercest of fighting men, fell adown. On the hall guest she hurled herself, and her short sword, broad and brown-edged, the bairn to avenge the sole-born son. On his shoulder lay braided breast-mail, barring death, withstanding entrance of edge or blade. Life would have ended for Ecgtheow's son under wide earth for that Earl of Geats, had his armour of war not aided him, battle-net hard, and holy God wielded the victory, wisest maker. The Lord of Heaven allowed his cause, and easily rose the Earl erect. Read by Rick Kistner for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf. Translated by Francis B. Grumer. 23. Mid the battle gear saw he a blade triumphant, old sword of Irton's, with edge of proof, warrior's heirloom, weapon unmatched. Save only 'twas more than other men to bandy of battle could bear at all, as the giants had wrought it, ready and keen. Seized then its chain hilt the Scyldings' chieftain, bold in battle grim, brandished the sword reckless of life, and so wrathfully smote that it gripped her neck and grasped her hard, her bone rings breaking, the blade pierced through that fated one's flesh. To floor she sank, bloody the blade, he was blithe of his deed. Then blazed forth light, 'twas bright within as when from the sky there shines unclouded heaven's candle. The hall he scanned. By the wall then when he his weapon raised, high by its hilts the Hygelic Thane, angry and eager. That edge was not useless to the warrior now. He wished with speed Grendel to guerdon for grim raids many, for the war he waged on western Danes, oftener far than an only time, when of Hrothgar's hearth companions he slew in number and sleep devoured 15 men of the folk of Danes, and as many others outward bore his horrible prey. Well paid for that the wrathful prince. For now, prone, he saw Grendel stretched there, spent with war, spoiled of life, so scathed had left him Heorot's battle. The body sprang far when after death it endured the blow, sword stroke savage that severed its head. Soon then saw the sage companions who waited with Hrothgar, watching the flood, that the tossing waters turbid grew, blood-stained the mare. Old men together, hoary-haired, of the hero spake. The warrior would not, they weened, again proud of conquest, come to seek their mighty master. To many it seemed the wolf of the waves had won his life. The 9th hour came. The noble Scyldings left the headland. Homeward went the gold friend of men, but the guests sat on, stared at the surges, sick in heart, and wished, yet weened not, their winsome lord again to see. Now that sword began, from blood of the fight, in battle droppings war-blade to wane, 'twas a wondrous thing, that all of it melted, as ice is wont when frosty fetters the father loosens, unwinds the wave bonds, wielding all seasons and times, the true God he. Nor took from that dwelling the Duke of the Geats, save only the head, and that hilt withal blazoned with jewels, the blade had melted. Burned was the bright sword, her blood was so hot, so poisoned the hell-sprite who perished within there. Soon he was swimming, who safe saw in combat downfall of demons, up dove through the flood. The clashing waters were cleansed now, waste of waves, where the wandering fiend her life-days left and this lapsing world. Swam then to strand the sailor's refuge, sturdy in spirit, of sea booty glad, of burden brave he bore with him. Went then to greet him, and God they thanked, the Thane band choice of their chieftain blithe, that safe and sound they could see him again. Soon from the hardy one helmet and armour deftly they doffed, now drowsed the mare, water 'neath welkin with war-blood stained. Forth they fared by the footpaths thence, merry at heart the highways measured, well-known roads. Courageous men carried the head from the cliff by the sea, an arduous task for all the band, the firm in fight since 4 were needed on the shaft of slaughter, strenuously to bear to the gold hall Grendel's head. So presently to the palace there, foemen fearless, 14 Geats marching came, their master of clan mighty amid them the meadow ways trod. Strode then within the sovereign Thane, fearless in fight of fame renowned, hardy hero, Hrothgar to greet. And next by the hair into hall was borne Grendel's head, where the henchmen were drinking, and awe to clan and queen alike, a monster of marvel, the men looked on. Read by Rick Kistner, for Lit to Go, on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 24. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. Lo now, this sea-booty son of Helfdene, lord of Scoldings, we've lustily brought thee sign of glory, thou seest it here. Not lightly did I with my life escape. In war under water this work I essayed with endless effort, and even so my strength had been lost had the Lord not shielded me. Not a whit could I with runting do in work of war, though the weapon is good. Yet a sword, the sovereign of men, vouchsafed me to spy on the wall there in splendor hanging, old, gigantic. How oft he guides the friendless wight, and I fought with that brand, felling in fight, since fate was with me, the house's wardens. That war sword then all burned bright blade when the blood gushed o'er it, battle sweat hot. But the hilt I brought back from my foes. So avenged I their fiendish deeds, death fall of Danes as was due and right. And this is my hest, that in Heorot now safe thou canst sleep with thy soldier band, and every thane of all thy folk, both old and young. No evil fear, Scoutings lord, from that side again, aught ill for thy earls, as erst thou must. Then the golden hilt, for that grey-haired leader, hoary hero, in hand was laid, giant wrought old. So owned and enjoyed it after downfall of devils the Danish lord, wonder-smith's work since the world was rid of that grim-souled fiend, the foe of God, murder-marked, and his mother as well. Now it passed into power of the people's king, best of all that the oceans bound, who have scattered their gold o'er Scandia's isle. Hrothgar spake, the hilt he viewed, heirloom old, where was etched the rise of that far-off fight when the floods o'erwhelmed raging waves, the race of giants, fearful their fate, a folk estranged from God eternal, whence guerdon due in that waste of waters the wielder paid them. So on the guard of shining gold in runic staves it was rightly said, for whom the serpent-traced sword was wrought, best of blades in bygone days, and the hilt well-rounded, the wise one spake, son of Helfdene, silent were all. Lo, so may he say who sooth and right follows mid-folk of fought times mindful, a land-warden old, that this earl belongs to the better breed. So borne aloft, thy fame must fly, O friend my Beowulf, far and wide o'er folksteads many. Firmly thou shalt all maintain mighty strength with mood of wisdom. Love of mine will I assure thee, as a while ago I promised, thou shalt prove a stay in future, in far-off years to folk of thine, to the heroes a help. Was not Heremod thus to offspring of Egwilla, honour Scoutings, nor grew for their grace, but for grisly slaughter, for doom of death to the Danishman? He slew, wrath-swollen, his shoulder comrades, companions at board, so he passed alone, chieftain haughty from human cheer. Though him the Maker with might endowed, delights of power, and uplifted high above all men, yet blood-fierce his mind, his breast-hoard grew, no bracelets gave he to Danes as was due. He endured all joyless strain of struggle and stress of woe, long feud with his folk. Here find thy lesson. Of virtue advise thee. This verse I have said for thee, wise from lapsed winters, wondrous seems how to sons of men Almighty God in the strength of his spirit sendeth wisdom, estate, high station. He swayeth all things. Whiles he letteth right lustily fare the heart of the hero of high-born race, in seed ancestral assigns him bliss. His folk's sure fortress in fee to hold puts in his power great parts of the earth, empire so ample that end of it this wanter of wisdom weeneth none. So he waxes in wealth, no wise can harm him, illness or age, no evil cares shadow his spirit, no sword hate threaten from ever an enemy. All the world wends at his will, no worse he knoweth, till all within him obstinate pride waxes and wakes, while the warden slumbers, the spirit's sentry. Sleep is too fast which masters his might, and the murderer nears, stealthily shooting the shafts from his bow. Read by Rick Kistner, for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 25. Under harness his heart, then, is hit indeed by sharpest shafts, and no shelter avails from foul behest of the hellish fiend. Him seems too little what long he possessed. Greedy and grim, no golden rings he gives for his pride, the promised future forgets he, and spurns, with all God has sent him, wonder-wielder of wealth and fame. Yet in the end, it ever comes that the frame of the body fragile yields, fated falls, and there follows another who joyously the jewels divides, the royal riches nor wrecks of his forebear. Ban then such baleful thoughts, Beowulf dearest. Best of men and the better part choose, profit eternal, and temper thy pride, warrior famous. The flower of thy might lasts now a while, but ere long it shall be that sickness or sword thy strength shall minish, or fang of fire, or flooding billow, or bite of blade, or brandished spear, or odious age, or the eye's clear beam wax dull and darken. Death, even thee in haste, shall o'erwhelm, thou hero of war. So the Ring-Danes these half-years 100 I ruled, wielded 'neath welkin, and warded them bravely from mighty ones many o'er Middle-earth, from spear and sword, till it seemed for me no foe could be found under fold of the sky. Lo, sudden the shift! To me, seated secure, came grief for joy, when Grendel began to harry my home, the hellish foe. For those ruthless raids unresting I suffered, heart-sorrow heavy. Heaven be thanked, Lord Eternal, for life extended, that I on this head, all hewn and bloody after long evil, with eyes may gaze. Go to the bench now. Be glad at banquet, warrior worthy. A wealth of treasure at dawn of day be dealt between us. Glad was the Geats' lord, going betimes to seek his seat, as the sage commanded. Afresh as before, for the famed in-battle for the band of the hall was a banquet dight nobly anew. The night-helm darkened dusk o'er the drinkers. The doughty ones rose, for the hoary-headed would hasten to rest, age scouting. And eager the Geat, shield-fighter sturdy, for sleeping yearned. Him, wander-weary, warrior guest from far, a hall thane heralded forth, who by custom courtly cared for all needs of a thane, as in those days warrior wanderers wont to have. So slumbered the stout heart. Stately the hall rose gabled and gilt, where the guest slept on, till a raven black the capture of heaven blithe heart boded. Bright came flying shine after shadow. The swordsman hastened, athelings all were eager homeward forth to fare, and far from thence the great-hearted guest would guide his keel. Bade then the hardy one, Hrunting, be brought to the son of Ecglaf. The sword bade him take, excellent iron, and uttered his thanks for it, quoth that he counted it keen in battle, war-friend winsome. With words he slandered not edge of the blade. 'Twas a big-hearted man. Now eager for parting and armed at point, warriors waited, while went to his host that darling of Danes. The doughty atheling to high seat hastened, and Hrothgar greeted. Read by Rick Kistner. For Lit to go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 26. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. Lo, we seafarers say our will far come men, that we fain would seek Hygelac now. We here have found hosts to our heart. Thou hast harboured us well. If ever on earth I am able to win me more of thy love, O Lord of men, aught anew than I now have done for work of war, I am willing still. If it come to me ever across the seas that neighbour foemen annoy and fright thee, as they that hate thee erewhile have used, thousands then of thanes I shall bring, heroes to help thee. Of Hygelac I know, ward of his folk, that, though a few his years, the Lord of the Geats would give me aid by word and work, that well I may serve thee, wielding the war-wood to win thy triumph, and lending thee might when thou lackest men. If thy Hrethric should come to court of Geats, a sovereign son, he will surely there find his friends. A far-off land each man should visit who vaunts him brave. Him then answering, Hrothgar spake, these words of thine, the wisest God sent to thy soul. No sager counsel from so young in years ere yet have I heard. Thou art strong of main, and in mind art wary, art wise in words. I ween indeed, if ever it hap, that Hrethel's heir by spear be seized, by sword grim battle, by illness or iron, thine elder and lord, people's leader, and life be thine, no seemlier man will the sea-Geats find at all to choose for their chief and king, for hoard guard of heroes, if hold thou wilt thy kinsman's kingdom. Thy keen mind pleases me, the longer the better, Beowulf loved. Thou hast brought it about that both our peoples, sons of the Geat and Spear-Dane folk, shall have mutual peace, and from murderous strife, such as once they waged, from war refrain. Long as I rule this realm so wide, let our hordes be common, let heroes with gold each other greet o'er the gannet's bath, and the ringed prow bear o'er rolling waves tokens of love. I trow my landfolk towards friend and foe are firmly joined, and honour thy keep in the olden way. To him in the hall then Healfdene's son gave treasures 12, and the trust of earls bade him fare with the gifts to his folk beloved, hail to his home, and in haste return. Then kissed the king of kin renowned, Scouding's chieftain, that choicest thane, and fell on his neck. Fast flowed the tears of the hoary-headed. Heavy with winters he had chances twain, but he clung to this, that each should look on the other again, and hear him in hall. Was this hero so dear to him? His breast's wild billows he banned in vain. Safe in his soul a secret longing, locked in his mind, for that loved man burned in his blood. Then Beowulf strode, glad of his gold gifts, the grass-plot o'er warrior blithe. The wave-roamer bode riding at anchor, its owners awaiting. As they hastened onward, Hrothgar's gift they laughed at length. 'Twas a lord unpeered, every way blameless, till age had broken, it spareth no mortal his splendid might. Read by Rick Kistner, for lit to go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grimmer. 27. Came now to ocean the ever-courageous hardy henchmen, their harness-bearing, woven war-sarks. The warden marked trusty as ever the earl's return. From the height of the hill no hostile words reached the guests as he rode to greet them. "But welcome," he called to that waiter clan as the sheen-mailed spoilers to ship marched on. Then on the strand, with steeds and treasure and armour, their roomy and ring-dight ship was heavily laden. High at its mast rose over Hrothgar's hoarded gems. A sword to the boat-guard Beowulf gave, mounted with gold on the mead bench, since he was better esteemed, that blade possessing heirloom old. Their ocean-keel boarding, they drove through the deep, and Daneland left. A sea-cloth was set, a sail with ropes firm to the mast. The flood timbers moaned, nor did wind over billows that wave-swimmer blow across from her course. The craft sped on. Foam-necked it floated forth o'er the waves, keel-firm bound over briny currents, till they got them sight of the Geatish cliffs, home-known headlands. High the boat, stirred by winds, on the strand updrove. Helpful at haven, the harbour-guard stood, who long already for loved companions by the water had waited and watched afar. He bound to the beach the broad-bosomed ship with anchor bands, lest ocean billows that trusty timber should tear away. Then Beowulf bade them bear the treasure, gold and jewels. No journey far was it thence to go to the giver of rings, Hygelec Hrethelling. At home he dwelt by the sea-wall close, himself and clan. Haughty that house, a hero the king, high the hall, and Hygd right young, wise and wary. Though winters few in those fortress walls, he had found a home, Harith's daughter. Nor humbled her ways, nor grudged she gifts to the Geatish men of precious treasure. Not thrice pride showed she, folk queen famed, or that fell deceit. Was none so daring that durst make bold, save her lord alone of the liegemen dear, that lady full in the face to look. But forged fetters he found his lot, bonds of death. And brief the respite soon as they seized him, his sword doom was spoken, and the burnished blade a baleful murder proclaimed and closed. No queenly way for women to practise, though peerless she, that the weaver of peace from warrior dear, by wrath and lying his life should reave. But Hemming's kinsmen hindered this, for over their ale men also told that of these folk horrors fewer she wrought onslaughts of evil after she went gold-decked bride to the brave young prince, atheling haughty, and off his hall all the fallow flood at her father's bidding safely sought, which since she prospered, royal, throned, rich in goods, thane of the fair life fate had sent her, and leal in love to the lord of warriors. He of all heroes I heard of ever, from sea to sea of the sons of earth, most excellent seemed. Henceover was praised for his fighting and feeing by far-off men, the spear-bold warrior. Wisely he ruled over his empire. Eoma woke to him help of heroes, Hemming's kinsman, grandson of Garmund, grim in war. Read by Rick Kistner, for lit to go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, Translated by Francis B. Grumer. 28. Hastened the hardy one, henchman with him, sandy strand of the sea to tread in widespread ways. The world's great candle sun shone from south. They strode along with sturdy steps to the spot they knew where the battle-king young, his burg within, slayer of Ongentheow, shared the ring's shelter of heroes. To Hygelac Beowulf's coming was quickly told, that there in the court the clansman's refuge, the shield companions sound and alive hail from the hero play homeward strode. With haste in the hall by highest order, room for the rovers was readily made. By his sovereign he sat, come safe from battle, kinsman by kinsman. His kindly lord he first had greeted in gracious form with manly words. The mead dispensing came through the high hall. Hereth's daughter, winsome to warriors, wine-cup bore to the hands of the heroes. Hygelac then his comrade fairly with question plied in the lofty hall, sore longing to know what manner of sojourn the sea-geats made. What came of thy quest, my kinsman Beowulf, when thy yearning suddenly swept thee yonder battle to seek o'er the briny sea combat in Heorot? Hrothgar, couldst thou aid at all the honoured chief in his wide-known woes? With waves of care my sad heart seethed. I sore mistrusted my loved one's venture. Long I begged thee by no means to seek that slaughtering monster, but suffer the South Danes to settle their feud themselves with Grendel. Now God be thanked that safe and sound I can see thee now. Beowulf spake, the bairn of Ecgtheow. 'Tis known and unhidden, Hygelac lord, to many men, that meaning of ours, struggle grim between Grendel and me, which we fought on the field where full too many sorrows he wrought for the scalding victors, evils unending. These all I avenged. No boast can be from breed of Grendel any on earth for that uproar at dawn from the longest-lived of the loathsome race in fleshy fold. But first I went Hrothgar to greet in the hall of gifts, where Healfdene's kinsman, high-renowned, soon as my purpose was plain to him, assigned me a seat by his son and heir. The liegemen were lusty. My life-days never such merry men over mead and hall have I heard under heaven. The high-born queen, people's peace-bringer, passed through the hall, cheering the young clansmen, clasps of gold, ere she sought her seat to sundry gave. Oft to the heroes, Hrothgar's daughter, to earls in turn the ale-cup tendered, she whom I heard these hall companions Frowaru name when fretted gold she proffered the warriors. Promised is she, gold-decked maid, to the glad son of Froda. Sage this seems to the Scauding's friend, kingdom's keeper, he counts it wise this woman to wed, so, and ward off feud, store of slaughter. But seldom ever when men are slain does the murder-spear sink but briefest, while though the bride be fair. Nor haply will like it the Hethelbard lord, and as little each of his liegemen all, when a thane of the Danes in that doughty throng goes with the lady along their hall, and on him the old-time heirlooms glisten, hard and ring-decked, Hethelbard's treasure, weapons that once they wielded fair, until they lost at the linden play, liegemen, leal, and their lives as well. Then, over the ale, on this heirloom gazing, some ash-wielder old, who has all in mind that spear-death of men, he is stern of mood, heavy at heart, in the hero young tests the temper and tries the soul, and war-hate wakens with words like these. Canst thou not, comrade, ken that sword which to the fray thy father carried in his final feud, neath the fighting mask, dearest of blades, when the Danish slew him, and wielded the war-place on Withergild's fall, after havoc of heroes, those hardy Scaudings? Now the son of a certain slaughtering Dane, proud of his treasure, paces his hall, joys in the killing, and carries the jewel that rightfully ought to be owned by thee. Thus he urges, and eggs him all the time with keenest words, till occasion offers, that Frowaru's thane for his father's deed after bite of brand in his blood must slumber, losing his life, but that liegeman flies living away. For the land he kens, and thus be broken on both their sides oaths of the earls, when Ingeld's breast wells with war-hate, and wife-love now after the care billows cooler grows. So I hold not high the Hethelbard's faith due to the Danes, or their during love and pact of peace. But I pass from that, turning to Grendel, O giver of treasure, and saying in full how the flight resulted, hand-fray of heroes, when heaven's jewel had fled o'er far fields, that fierce sprite came, night-foe savage, to seek us out, where safe and sound we sentried the hall. To Honskio then was that harassing deadly, his fall there was fated. He first was slain, girded warrior. Grendel on him turned murderous mouth on our mighty kinsman, and all of the brave man's body devoured. Yet none the earlier, empty-handed would the bloody-toothed murderer, mindful of bale, outward go from the gold-decked hall. But me he attacked in his terror of might, with greedy hand grasped me. A glove hung by him wide and wondrous, wound with bands, and in artful wise it all was wrought by devilish craft of dragon skins. Me therein, an innocent man, the fiendish foe was fain to thrust with many another. He might not so when I all angrily upright stood. 'Twere long to relate how that land-destroyer I paid in kind for his cruel deeds, yet there my prince this people of thine got fame by my fighting. He fled away, and a little space his life preserved, but there stayed behind him his stronger hand, left in Heorot. Heartsick thence on the floor of the ocean that outcast fell. Me for this struggle the Scounding's friend paid in plenty with plates of gold, with many a treasure, when morn had come, and we all at the banquet board sat down. Then was song and glee. The grey-haired Scounding, much tested, told of the times of yore. Whiles the hero his harp bestirred would of delight, now lays he chanted of sooth and sadness, or set aright legends of wonder, the wide-hearted king, or for years of his youth he would yearn at times for strength of old struggles, now stricken with age, hoary hero. His heart surged full when, wise with winters, he wailed their flight. Thus in the hall the whole of that day at ease we feasted, till fell o'er earth another night. Anon, full ready in greed of vengeance, Grendel's mother set forth all doleful. Dead was her son through war-hate of Weders. Now, woman monstrous with fury, fell a foeman she slew, avenged her offspring. From Aesgir old loyal counsellor life was gone. Nor might they e'en when morning broke, those Danish people, their death-done comrade, burn with brands, on bale fire lay the man they mourned. Under a mountain stream she had carried the corpse with cruel hands. For Hrothgar that was the heaviest sorrow of all that had laden the lord of his folk. The leader then, by thy life besought me, sad was his soul, in the sea waves coiled to play the hero, and hazard my being for glory of prowess. My guerdon he pledged. I then in the waters, 'tis widely known, that sea-floor guardian savage found. Hand to hand there awhile we struggled, billows welled blood. In the briny hall her head I hewed with a hardy blade from Grendel's mother, and gained my life, though not without danger. My doom was not yet. Then the haven of heroes, Helfdene's son, gave me and Guerdon great gifts of price. Read by Rick Kirshner for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 29. So held this king to the customs old, that I wanted for naught in the wage I gained. The meed of my might he made me gifts, Helfdene's heir, for my own disposal. Now to thee, my prince, I proffer them all, gladly give them. Thy grace alone can find me favour. Few indeed have I of kinsmen, save Hygelac, thee. Then he bade them bear him the boar-head standard, the battle-helm high, and breastplate grey, the splendid sword, then spake in form. Me this war-gear the wise old prince Hrothgar gave, and his hest he added, that its story be straightway said to thee. A while it was held by Heorogar king, for long time lord of the land of Scoundings. Yet not to his son the sovereign left it, to daring Heorweird, dear as he was to him, his harness of battle. Well, hold thou it all. And I heard that soon passed o'er the path of this treasure an apple fallow, 4 good steeds, each like the others, arms and horses he gave to the king. So should kinsmen be, not weave one another the net of wiles, or with deep hid treachery death contrive for neighbour and comrade. His nephew was ever by hardy Hygelac held full dear, and each kept watch o'er the other's weal. I heard too the necklace to Hygd he presented, wonder-wrought treasure which Wealhtheow gave him, sovereign's daughter. 3 steeds he added, slender and saddle gay. Since such gift the gem gleamed bright on the breast of the queen. Thus showed his strain, the son of Ecgtheow, and as a man remarked for mighty deeds and acts of honour. At ale he slew not comrade or kin, nor cruel his mood, though of sons of earth his strength was greatest, a glorious gift that God had sent the splendid leader. Long was he spurned and worthless by Geatish warriors held. Him at mead the master of clans failed full oft to favour at all. Slack and shiftless the strong men deemed him profitless prince. But payment came to the warrior honoured for all his woes. Then the bulwark of earls bade bring within hardy chieftain Hrethel's heirloom garnished with gold. No Geat e'er knew in shape of a sword a statelier prize. The brand he laid in Beowulf's lap, and of hides assigned him 7,000 with house and high seat. They held in common land alike by their line of birth, inheritance, home, but higher the king because of his rule o'er the realm itself. Now further it fell within the flight of years, with harryings horrid, that Hygelac perished, and Heardred too, by hewing of swords under the shield wall slaughtered lay, when him at the van of his victor folk sought hardy heroes, Heatho Skilfing's in arms o'erwhelming Hereric's nephew. Then Beowulf came as king this broad realm to wield, and he ruled it well 50 winters, a wise old prince, warding his land, until one began in the dark of night a dragon to rage, in the grave on the hill a horde it guarded, in the stone barrow steep. A straight path reached it, unknown to mortals. Some man, however, came by chance that cave within to the heathen horde. In hand he took a golden goblet, nor gave he it back, stole with it away while the watcher slept by thievish wiles, for the warden's wrath prince and people must pay betimes. Read by Rick Kistner. For Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu. Beowulf, translated by Francis B. Grumer. 30. That way he went with no will of his own, in danger of life to the dragon's hoard, but for pressure of peril some prince's thane. He fled in fear the fatal scourge, seeking shelter, a sinful man, and entered in. At the awful sight tottered that guest, and terror seized him. Yet the wretched fugitive rallied anon from fright and fear ere he fled away, and took the cup from that treasure hoard. Of such besides there was store enough, heirlooms old, the earth below, which some earl forgotten in ancient years left the last of his lofty race heedfully there had hidden away dearest treasure. For death of yore had hurried all hence, and he alone left to live, the last of the clan, weeping his friends, yet wished to bide, warding the treasure, his one delight, though brief his respite. The barrow, new ready, to strand and sea wave stood anear, hard by the headland, hidden and closed. There laid within it his lordly heirlooms, and heaped hoard of heavy gold, that warden of rings. Few words he spake. Now hold thou, earth, since heroes may not what earls have owned. Lo, erst from thee brave men brought it, but battle death seized, and cruel killing my clansmen all robbed them of life and a liegeman's joys. None have I left to lift the sword, or to cleanse the carven cup of price beaker bright. My brave are gone, and the helmet hard, all haughty with gold, shall part from its plating. Polishers sleep, who could brighten and burnish the battle mask, and those weeds of war that were wont to brave over bicker of shields the bite of steel rust with their bearer. The ringed maul fares not far with famous chieftain at sight of hero. No harp's delight, no gleewood's gladness, no good hawk now flies through the hall, nor horses fleet stamp in the burgstead. Battle and death the flower of my race have reft away. Mournful of mood, thus he moaned his woe, alone for them all, and unblithe wept by day and by night, till death's fell wave overwhelmed his heart. His hoard of bliss, that old ill-doer open found, who blazing at twilight the barrows haunteth, naked foe dragon flying by night, folded in fire. The folk of earth dread him sore. 'Tis his doom to seek hoard in the graves, and heathen gold to watch many wintered, nor wins he thereby. Powerful this plague of the people thus held the house of the hoard in earth 300 winters, till one aroused wrath in his breast, to the ruler bearing that costly cup, and the king implored for bond of peace. So the barrow was plundered, borne off was his booty, his boon was granted that wretched man, and his ruler saw first time what was fashioned in far-off days. When the dragon awoke, new woe was kindled. O'er the stone he snuffed. The stark heart found footprint of foe, who so far had gone in his hidden craft by the creature's head. So may the undoomed easily flee evils and exile, if only he gain the grace of the wielder. That warden of gold o'er the ground went seeking, greedy to find the man who wrought him such wrong in sleep. Savage and burning, the barrow he circled all without, nor was any there, none in the waste, yet war he desired was eager for battle. The barrow he entered, sought the cup, and discovered soon that some one of the mortals had searched his treasure, his lordly gold. The guardian waited, ill-enduring, till evening came. Boiling with wrath was the barrow's keeper, and fain with flame the foe to pay for the dear cup's loss. Now day was fled, as the worm had wished. By its wall no more was it glad to bide, But burning flew folded in flame, a fearful beginning for sons of the soil, and soon it came in the doom of their lord to a dreadful end. Read by Rick Kistner for Lit to Go on the web at fcit.usf.edu.